Hi, it's Peter Chapman, and I'd like to welcome you to another version of our SKUFood Recipes for Success presented by FCC. Today, we've got a really exciting topic that we're going to talk about here today about how you can generate sales without all those great in-store sampling opportunities that you've all grown so accustomed to. So this afternoon, I'd like to really welcome Meg Svetkova from Sampler. So Meg, it's great to have you with us today and joining us. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation about Sampler and some of the great things that your company is doing for people. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Peter, and thank you everybody who's joined today. Really appreciate being here.
Great, yeah, and I agree. Thank you to people for spending some time with us today, and I appreciate that things are busy, and we're now getting back into sort of coming off summer vacations, and people are now getting back to sort of well, I'm not sure that in 2020 we really have the day-to-day, but we're getting back to it for sure. So, it's great to be doing another one of our recipes for success, and these are meant to really be insightful for food producers and processors and help you in your business as you manage through some of the changes of 2020. And we want our sessions to be interactive, so we encourage you to use the chat or ask questions. And I know that as Meg and I were talking about some of the things that we're going to discuss today, I definitely anticipate that we'll have lots of great questions. So I look forward to that, and our sessions are meant to be interactive. So we look forward to it. And as far as introducing Meg properly, the first thing I'll tell you about Meg, before I tell you sort of some of her background, is that I was really so happy with how responsive Sampler was. When I reached out to them and learned about some of the things that they were doing, all of a sudden I got a note back right away, and Meg and I were talking about how she could participate with us in our recipes for success. So thanks very much for your really prompt reply, Meg. It was great to when you're doing business with people, that's so encouraging, right? When you get that response back. So thank you.
Definitely. Thank you,
And,
Peter. Yeah.
and Meg is the business development manager at Sampler. And she grew up in Sofia, Bulgaria, went to university in London in the UK, and then has since made her way to Toronto. So she's got a lot of great experience she brings to the market, and having some different, your background in terms of some of the things that you've done definitely give you some interesting things to bring, I'm sure, to your day-to-day job, such as working with the founder of a sustainable materials and fashion startup in London, doing market research for a boutique brokerage, identifying trends and opportunities for growth in the market. And then since you joined Sampler, I know you've been working on different things like their outbound prospecting strategy, driving sales with qualified leads, and then also optimizing that process for inbound and outbound. So lots of different things. So we're really excited to hear about how you take some of that great background and apply it to help food businesses in that sampling world. So thanks again for being here with us. And I also want to remind people that our recipes for success are presented by FCC, and we appreciate the partnership with FCC. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with FCC's background in agriculture, but they really are the only Canadian financial institution that's really 100% invested in agriculture and food. And they support food businesses from artisanal startups to large multinationals who are exporting. And they also work with people at every stage of the value chain, from producers and processors through packaging to wholesalers, distributors, retail. So they really do understand food, and they have a wide range of financial products that I'm sure could be interesting to many different food producers and processors. So we always appreciate the partnership with FCC, and excited to see as they support our food industry growing and managing through some really challenging times. So it's great to have them as a partner. And our topic today of generating sales with no in-store sampling is a great example of what we try to do here at SKUFood. We try to bring solutions to you. And it's not theory, it's reality. And it's not meant to be something that becomes a big project in your business. We want to give you things that you can take and implement right away. So we're excited to be talking about generating sales in September. And we've had some conversations about service level. We're going to talk sampling today. Next week, we're going to talk about developing relationships with your customers in this virtual world. And then at the end of the month, we're going to talk about online shopping and how it's changed the market and what suppliers should be doing about it. So I'm sure at some point Susan will put the link in the chat. So if you are interested in participating in our session next Wednesday or the following week, then the link will be there if you're interested in registering for those. So we appreciate you being here with us. So, and we are going to record the session today, and we'll send that recording out to those who register and share it with people, because it's important to learn about this. And I want to learn about it. So Meg, let's talk about Sampler and all the great things that that your business is doing. And before we do that, though, I just want to do a quick poll, because I think it's great for us to understand a little bit about the audience. So I'm going to just launch that poll. And really what I'm interested in is to see how important sampling was in your marketing strategy prior to March, because we know since then it's really not realistic. So we just asked, you know, yes, it was important. Yes, we did some, but not too much. Or no, we didn't do any. And as always, we do appreciate the people who are supporting the industry here too, whether it's through government or industry associations who are with us. So it seems like most of the people, probably 2/3, I would say, did some sampling in the past. And so with 1/3 of them saying, yes, it's important. And then also an equivalent amount saying, yes, we did some sampling. So I'll just put those results up so you can see it. So we, you know, it's mixed there between that. So, and that often happens, Meg, we get people where we see that the results are mixed, but I would say overall about 2/3 of the people who are with us today have incorporated sampling as some part of their marketing strategy. And now, as I keep talking to people, they lament that they can't do it. And I know that you bring some solutions to the table to them. So I'm excited to learn about it and understand it. So maybe you could tell us a bit about Sampler and what the business is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Exciting to see that so many people, by the way, have been doing sampling and know that it's important for them as well. We believe it's incredibly important. So happy to get started. Peter, if you want, perhaps we can get the slides on.
All right, I will put that up for you.
Amazing.
There you go.
Perfect. Yeah, so for those of you that aren't familiar with Sampler, we started our journey back in 2013. So it's been 7 years in the making. Our founder, Marie Chevrier, had worked as a brand ambassador, handing out product samples in street corners. And she really firsthand saw how untargeted and unmeasurable those samples can really be for brands. It's a really interesting mix for brand marketers as well, because it hasn't evolved much since it started. Essentially, you'll be thinking of sampling as either being on a street corner or doing an in-store demo. And it's so important for a brand. However, it hasn't necessarily been digitized or impacted by the new way of measuring sampling. So what Sampler does, and what I think is so interesting, is that we're able to bring traditional sampling into the digital world.
I thought it was so interesting that the founder of the business actually was doing samples and identified it as an opportunity. And I think it's always great when people start out in something and see an opportunity and then act on it. So I thought that was really interesting. And a Canadian company as well, right?
Yeah, we're Toronto born, proudly Canadian. We do operate in 24 different countries, but Canada and the US are our key markets.
Right.
Yeah, happy to go to the next slide and kind of show you a little bit of what we're all about.
All right, there you go.
Yeah, so you can see here a few different examples of what Sampler does. Essentially, the backstory is how Sampler came to be. Marie set out to create this solution that allows brands to give consumers a tangible sampling experience where they can measure their exact capabilities and targeting in a new realm. So Sampler's biggest focus is helping brands create that memorable consumer experience through the power of the digital world, as I said. Our theory is that targeting samples to consumers who are specifically looking for them is a win-win situation for both the consumer and the brand. You can see some examples here. Essentially, for the 7 years that we've been really coming to be. We've created a global solution for brands of all shapes and sizes. We work with household names such as L'Oreal and Henkel, as well as small emerging brands that are just launching in the market.
And I'm sure that if the business started in 2013, that the first 6 years were one thing, and 2020 has been something very different, right?
Exactly, exactly. And happy to chat a little bit more about that, because I think it's going to be very interesting for everybody who's here listening, as it's impacted everybody's world, and the sampling world has been fully different. So next slide, please, Peter.
Mm-hmm. There you go.
Yeah, so we've had, as I said, a very unique experience during COVID. In the circumstances, there is obviously so many restrictions, and with lockdown, it's fully validated Sampler's offering. So when Sampler started back in 2013, the majority of companies that we started working with were not familiar with what digital sampling is. So we had to do a lot of education in explaining how robust and how different and amazing it can be when it comes to the measurement and targeting of those specific campaigns. Slowly over the years, it's becoming a very common marketing tool for brands, and we've had a very gradual increase when it comes to adoption, but this has fully been kicked into a hyperdrive since COVID started. So we now have a situation where the pandemic has actually accelerated our trajectory out of circumstances more than anything. And you can see some examples here. Retail has obviously been severely impacted, and we've seen growth when it comes to e-commerce channels, experiential marketing, or what we're used to, or what a lot of you are used to when it comes to hanging out samples at street corners or doing in-store demos, is no longer possible. And consumer behavior is also changing. I mean, consumers are staying at home. This is the new going out, so to say. So what can be better than receiving a targeted sample directly to your home, so you can have that one-on-one experience with a brand that you could possibly enjoy buying later on in the future.
Mm-hmm. And certainly I agree. And it's almost like the people who are in your database are almost like mini influencers when it comes to some of the reactions they get, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
So maybe we could just talk a little bit about some of the advantages then of Sampler relative to other methods, that kind of thing.
For sure. And I think that this will be very interesting for everybody who's listening. So next slide, please, Peter.
Mm-hmm.
You can see here that the path of purchase is no longer a straight line. And I'm sure that all of you have seen that graph in one way or another. It is getting more and more difficult to really become the top of mind for consumers. We have so many options and so many choices as consumers, and it's so easy to also be purchasing on autopilot. Especially in the current environment, you would most likely be going to your local store and be buying necessities. You wouldn't be looking for brands that you're not familiar with. So with Sampler, what we're able to do and what we help all brands that we work with do is get into the hands of their ideal target market and help them cut through all that noise and make the line a little bit straighter, at least.
I love this slide. When I received it from Meg, I was going to ask you if I can take a shot of this one and use it. I'll give you credit, but I thought it was such a great picture, because it's that is what's going on right now, and I think that consumers, that sort of path to purchase, which we used to think was somewhat linear, really has become a jumbled ball of yarn. So I thought it was a great graphic. And just before we keep talking, I just want to acknowledge, I did see a couple of comments in the chat, and I see that one of the people, Todd, has put in that his business is using Sampler, so that's great. So you've already got somebody who's taking advantage of it. And then I see Shelley just put a little note in there about their business being a farm and with a certified kitchen. So so a lot of interesting things that she's got going on there and how she's dealing with samples. So thanks for their comments there. So And Meg, I'll
Yeah,
let you keep talking about some of the advantages. After you
absolutely.
can maybe you can unravel that ball of yarn for everybody.
Well, I hope so, at least a little bit. And Todd, thank you for being one of our clients. Essentially, what you're seeing here is, again, something that I'm sure that you've seen on one way or another. As a brand, you can have different products or different brands at different trees, as we like to call them here at Sampler. But it's a very simple way to look at the consumer journey and the way that consumers are interacting with your specific brand. With Sampler, what we like to do and what we do is help tackle those specific brand objectives regardless of what stage the consumer is in. So if we're looking at the first tree, the smallest one, the awareness and relevance tree, what Sampler does is we can help you drive that awareness and relevance, helping you target your consumers by identifying which segments resonate best with your brand or with your product. If we're going to the next stage, which is differentiation, what we're able to do is help you nail that unique value proposition and start expanding. What Sampler can do is figure out what works best for your consumers. So what they liked about your product, what they didn't like, which specific products they're buying in different categories. And I'm sure that all of you are aware of how important that is. When you're looking at adoption, this is a great opportunity to communicate your brand values and drive resonance as well as cross-sell. You can also look at your CRM. I'm not sure how many of you are building CRM lists. I know that a lot of the companies that we're speaking to every day are finding it more and more important into
I
the
think
current.
they wish they had.
That's exactly it. Yeah, we're hearing that as well. We're hearing so many brands out there say, we wish that we started earlier. It's never too late to start though, and we can help you with that as well. With the adoption stage, CRM is probably a key activity that you're looking to build and hone in. So every consumer that is delivered to a sample with Sampler has the opportunity to opt in to your brand CRM. That gives them that whole memorable experience where they're able to not only have the personalized product arrive at their doorstep, but then receive more information from the brand that they would most likely become advocates to. The next step is advocacy, what we're all looking to achieve. And regardless whether or not you're a CPG or you're a company like Sampler, Sampler can help you build those personalized experiences and relationships, earning a presence in everybody's day-to-day life. So through Samplers, consumers would have that experience where they can also write a rating and review, be encouraged to post on social media and generate UGC, which is, again, an important factor when you're thinking about your consumers. Peter, I know you mentioned this, they can become those micro influencers for you. They can be posting on social media and connecting with you at different points in time and with your brand.
Right.
Regardless of what stage you're in as a brand, we can really work with you to identify what way we can hone in and help you get to the last part, which is advocacy.
And for me, when I looked at this, and it gave me a better understanding of, I guess, the full offering, because it's not really just sending something out to somebody. There's a lot more to this. And one of the conversations, I'll say, to use a polite word, that I would have, maybe more arguments with a lot of producers and processors, is the effectiveness of in-store demos. And if you think of a store where you probably have plus or minus 30,000 transactions a week, and you go in and do a 3-hour demo, I'll be kind and say that you're going to interact with 200 consumers. So my first question always was, well, how do you know they're in your target market? And the second thing is that it's less than 1% of the store traffic that week. And I appreciate in those 30,000 transactions, there are people who run in for 2 liters of milk or a loaf of bread, but there are a lot of people doing their shop for their family. And then the other question is, how often do you turn that consumer into a long-term, brand advocate, as Meg has described them here. And the real answer is we don't know. And that's one of the other challenges of doing in-store demos. And when I would challenge people about it, I think that a lot of people felt they were really busy in their business and they were doing good things with in-store sampling, which can lead to volume for sure, but it is also a very time-consuming, resource-draining, and can be expensive as well when you add up the cost. Like, it's not just the cost of that sample that you give them, it's your time, it's the preparation, and all the other things. So there are a lot of different components to comparing the effectiveness of doing in-store demos versus other options like Sampler. And one point I want to make here, Meg, as well, is about target market. And I think that one of the things that my experience with a lot of producers and processors, and when I do work with people, is one of the first things I'll say to them is, we need to define your target market. Who's going to buy your product? And a lot of people tell me, oh, everybody loves it, and I go, okay, that's nice. But out of those 30,000 people going through a store in a week, how many are really in your target market? So when you work with a brand, do you challenge them about that? And do you help them define that target market if they don't have it really buttoned down?
Yeah, that's a great question, Peter. And it's something that we ask right after we speak to a brand. We ask them who their target market is, because it is so important. You want to be getting your product into the hands of consumers who are likely going to be loyal advocates and going to purchase your product. So we can help brands deliver their samples directly to the target market who they think is right for them. And we can also help them test different target markets. We can help them see what different patterns and insights emerge when perhaps they're looking to try a few different audiences or segments.
Mm-hmm. And that expansion of the target market, because for me, and I say, okay, we need to define it, which is important, and I think that's a critical starting point, but then you have to constantly, as the market evolves and consumers change, and perhaps how they could use your product, lots of different things changing, you have to keep trying to test and see how can you grow that target market. So I think it's great that you have the ability to help people figure it out as opposed to maybe just guess a little bit. And when it comes to capturing the CRM and working with that, how does that work with Sampler? Is that the brand has the opportunity to put something in the box to engage the consumer, or how does that work?
Yeah, happy to tell you more. Why don't we go to next slide, because I think you would like seeing what consumers we currently have as an example. This is our Canadian audience, and I think it would be very relevant for a lot of the Canadian folks joining us here. Sampler has a reach potential of up to 50 million consumers across North America. And what's really interesting is that to create a profile with Sampler, I'm not sure if anybody has created a consumer profile yet.
I have.
Okay.
I'm one of those 12% males.
All right. So you know what it looks like, but to summarize it, it's really interactive. So once you sign up, first you have to be verified. So you have to be verified by your phone number, by your email address, and your mailing address. We want to make sure that our consumers are not just freebie hunters, and they're real people who can match with real samples and products that they're looking to receive. The other thing that's very interesting about the way that our consumer profiles are built is because we constantly ask consumers multiple questions where they're able to answer depending on their personal preferences, and then have the opportunity to match with products that are really right for them. In all fairness, as I said before, regardless of what you're looking as a brand, our theory is that targeted samples are best not only for the brand but for the consumer as well. And if we have a brand that's coming to us saying they want to have a very open target market, that's totally okay. But to help you understand your consumers better, we're advocates of targeting them.
So you're all right if somebody wants to send 50 million samples out, you'll figure out how to make that happen, right?
We'll figure out how to make that happen, yes.
Yeah.
We'll make sure they have a good experience as well.
Right. And I just, there were a couple more comments in the chat. And so Jim put a comment in there about work with fresh produce. So we're going to get to that. We're going to talk about perishable products in a little bit, because that was a question I had for Meg as well. So we will talk to that. And I see a note from Crystal saying that she's also a participant and she's anxiously awaiting for her first samples to arrive. So we're growing your database right now for you, Meg.
That is really exciting. And for everybody who's a consumer as well, just like me, just like you, Peter, the more you engage with the platform, the more samples you can match with. So that's a great point where you're looking at this slide with our audience. All of these specific data points are built exactly like that. Consumers are voluntarily telling us who they are, what they like, and so on.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So maybe we'll take a pause for a minute and see if there are any questions. I did see one question there, which I will take a look at right now. So it's a question from Ron, and he said, are there any products that you don't work with?
There are, and to that question as well, Peter, it was, I know, one of your questions. We are not able to work directly with perishable products and with frozen products. Although we're not able to ship them, we're able to either send physical samples directly to be claimed in store for specific retailers if they do have good distribution, or we do have a very exciting new offering, which I'm going to get into more detail about. It's surrounding e-commerce. So we are able to drive consumers to the brand's e-commerce website or retailer's website, where they're able to claim either a fully free product or a percentage off of a product, where the brand or the retailer would be doing the shipping directly.
Right. And I'm sure that retailers would actually be excited about that, because then we're driving traffic into the store as well, right? So
exactly.
And then it's their job to sell some more product to them. So
exactly.
So that's how it can work with Fresh to answer the question that we had there from Jim. And then also there's another one from Ron about, are you able to send samples of controlled products? So I think that might be a reference to cannabis or something along those lines. Beverage alcohol, I guess, would be another product. So is that something?
It's a great question. When it comes to controlled products, we obviously want to make sure that we're complying with all legislations. And unfortunately, when it comes to the Canadian market, we are not able to send out CBD or any marijuana products. However, in the US, in certain states, it's not an issue. So we do work with a lot of CBD brands out there in the US, where we're sending out samples and helping them get to their target market. When it comes to alcohol sampling, however, it is unfortunately something that we're not able to do fully right now. We are in the process of figuring out different ways where we can perhaps do it, but for the time being, the answer is no.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. And sometimes you have to be clear about what you can and what you can't do as well, right? So now that you've explained some of the benefits and we've talked about the consumers, how does it work?
Yeah, that's, I guess, the exciting part. So, Peter, if you don't mind starting our slides again.
Sure.
I have something that I think would explain everything in a very easy manner.
All right, I'll put it up there for you. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, so the first part of it is really choosing your offer type. There is a few important steps of building the right program for your specific needs. And with Sampler, what we like to say is that you can build your own adventure. So here is the first example. On the left-hand side, you have the physical offer. Of course, there is product samples, and you can see some examples here of brands that we've worked with in the past or we're currently working with, coupons that adheres to physical coupons for consumers to claim directly in stores, or insert cards. They're used as a complement to physical samples or coupons. On the right-hand side, you have the high-value digital offers that I mentioned earlier. They're a new thing that we recently launched, and we're seeing so many brands be interested, mostly because e-commerce is becoming so much more valuable now than it was before the pandemic even. The next part is, Peter, if you could, thank you very much. Yes, the next part is choosing your audience. We already chatted about Sampler's audience. We do have a reach of 50 million consumer potential across 700 different segments, and you did see some of them in Canada here. Of course, you can choose your audience. If you're perhaps working with influencers or running social media campaigns, we can help you amplify those and have a higher recall to ads, as you can see here with a sampling CTA. Or if you're looking to have consumers be incentivized to fill out a diagnostic, they can also do that. And it's a really great way to help build your additional audience campaigns that you're running.
So how does that diagnostic work? So that would be the people who receive the samples, then you ask them some additional questions, is that right?
No, actually, that's before you match with the sample. It's all part of it. We do have the opportunity to help brands remarket further after and understand whether or not they like the product, gather a little bit more insight about their experience. But that diagnostic starts as they're matching with the sample. So a good example that I always like to think of is the influencer here with CeraVe. They would be having their specific video or Instagram post, and afterwards there would be some questions that the consumer would be driven to answer to match.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I noticed when I did fill out my profile, there were a few questions that would help, I guess, in terms of trying to figure out where I fit. So
exactly, and this is how we map out our audience. And when we say 700 different segments, this is precisely what it means.
Mm-hmm. I picked wavy hair. That's what I went with on the hair question.
Well, that's a good one. Yeah, the last but not least is choosing your experience. So you can either choose an exchange experience where your product would be shared with between 2 to 6 different samples. However, you would have full category exclusivity. So that is really important because you wouldn't be matched in a box with another, perhaps 10 different candy bars.
Right.
The other option is a fully branded experience. In it, you would have 100% share of voice. You would have your logo on top of the box. And it works really well for those influencer campaigns or social media ads that you're looking to amplify. And
would the fully branded campaigns usually be a smaller, tighter audience that you're trying to go, or does it not really follow that trend?
It doesn't follow that trend. It depends on the specific brand. I would say that we have worked with both experiences in either very, very tight audiences or much broader audiences. It depends on the brand and what their objectives are and how they're looking to reach their consumers.
Mm-hmm. Up until about 2 weeks ago, I would not have heard of CeraVe, but one of my daughters had to have it. So I'm now familiar with that product. So I can pretend that I'm in the know on that one. So it's really kind of a 3-step process for somebody who wants to work with Sampler. It's first of all choosing that whether it's going to be physical or digital, that's where you start. And then you move on to the audience, and then you talk about the exchange or fully branded. So it's really those sort of 3 steps. Okay. Right.
Regardless of what program composition the brand chooses to do, the consumers would always have the opportunity to leave that feedback or rating and review, as well as the ability to sign up to their CRM for further remarketing. Mm-hmm. So to summarize, regardless of what adventure you choose and regardless of what's right for you, you would still be able to reap all the benefits of digital sampling.
Okay, all right, interesting. And And one of the things when we were talking was that that you mentioned that Sampler can work with companies to develop their online presence, their online community. So I'm interested in how that can work as well, because I think that, as we talked earlier, there are a lot of people wishing that they had done this, but as Meg, you said, it's never too late. And I think it's probably more important and more valuable to a food company now than it's ever been. So there are ways that Sampler can help people with that, right?
Absolutely, yeah. This is a great example of the power of user-generated content and how we can help you build your social media channels and make sure that consumers are engaged with them. So here you can see some pictures that were taken directly from our Instagram page, where consumers would be tagging them. And what's really interesting is that all sampler boxes have a hashtag called SamplerLove printed on them. So the consumers would be encouraged to go to social media and post about their unique experiences. As a brand, just as you said, Peter, you're most likely looking to motivate your consumers to produce and contribute to those social media channels. And sampling is a great way to do that. So by optimizing your social media channels, you can make sure that consumers are leaving feedback, sharing their experiences, and becoming influencers, which is incredibly exciting. And we're seeing so many consumers share those unique experiences that they're having before even purchasing a product, when they try it out once.
Okay. And so when it comes to all of this, I'm sure because of the way Sampler's set up, you can really understand the results and the effectiveness of it. And I know you wanted to share some of that and explain how, some of the results for people.
Yeah, to highlight a few of them, you can see the general results and what we see on average campaigns that we run all the time. You would be expected to be reaching 100% of your net new target consumers. When it comes to the CRM that we also talked about, if you're running a campaign with, say, 10,000 samples, you would expect at least 5,000 of these consumers to opt in to your brand CRM database. So you would have those email addresses and you would be able to continuously remarket. The next part is we continue engaging with follow-up surveys, and the participation is average 30%, which I'm sure a lot of you know is a very, very good number. We are also able to retarget and further make sure that you have access to all of these great stats for your specific campaign.
Okay, so 50% opt into the CRM. I should maybe I should figure out how to do some samples for SKUFood into there and grow my community. I'm not sure what I'd send them, but that's a great rate to be able to do that. And then even the 30% follow up, because it is hard to get people's attention. People are busy, they have a lot on the go. So obviously what's happening, I guess the combination of it being targeted at the right people and also the way that it's executed, right? So
exactly, yeah.
All right, and I do see a question there from Jim, so I'm just going to take a pause and we can maybe just take a look at that question. And he's saying, if a supplier chooses to use a coupon in store, so I'm assuming he's talking about where you referred to the fresh products and they would go in store to redeem. How is the information about who the purchaser is, how is that gathered?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jim. Essentially, before they match with your coupon, they still have to go through the very same process. So they would have to answer specific diagnostic questions, and we would still have to learn about them, what they eat, where they shop, whether or not they have children, pets, and so on. So the process is the very same. The only difference is that they wouldn't be receiving the physical sample. They would be receiving a physical coupon to go to a specific store location to claim it.
And then once they go and claim that sample, then there would be a follow-up that would go and say, did you like it? Did you, what was
Exactly.
your experience, and that kind of thing, right?
Exactly. That wouldn't change.
Mm-hmm.
That would still be the very same. Really, the only difference is the physical, tangible product not being delivered to their doorstep.
Right, right. Okay. So I'm just going to throw it out to people right now if they've got any more questions, because I always say this is the fastest hour of the week for me. So the time does go by quickly, and I want to really, give people the opportunity if you have questions for Meg. My next question for Meg is going to be, it sounds awesome, but what does it cost? I think it's something that we all have to think about. So maybe I'll ask that question now, Meg, and if people have some other things, they can type them into the chat or into the Q&A. So I'll let you explain some of the numbers to people so they get a sense of what the investment is as well.
For sure, yeah. So there is quite a few different variables when it comes to the cost. It's impacted by the type of offer that they choose, the quantity as well, and how they choose the offer to be distributed. The audience is also a factor, as well as the experience. My favorite part about the platform, and I know that I chatted about this a few times already, but it's the fact that you can choose your own adventure or your own strategy, and we can help you tailor the program to your specific needs so you can reach your goals and your objectives. The cost is truly based on all of that, and it's dependent on the specific different components. Essentially, most of our programs begin with a nominal fee, which can be as low as $300 per month, and you would have access to our technology for a handful of offers. If you're looking to distribute physical samples, the shipping and fulfillment cost would be determined by the weight and dimensions of the sample. To give you a ballpark, just an idea of what you should be expecting, a cost of an average sample that's under 2 ounces would be between $1.15 to $2.15.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm assuming a lot of times people will come to you, and I think it's probably reasonable to say that they have a budget that they need to work within. So are you able to then say, okay, well, the most effective piece of our 50 million subscribers is this group here, and that you can work within that?
Exactly, yeah. Our reach is potential reach is 50 million, but we're able to segment by the specific needs. So perhaps they're looking for a consumer who's health conscious, who might be having some dietary restrictions. We can help them narrow down.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Great. And I see there's a question there from Courtney that says, where do you go to introduce new products? So I'm not sure if that means geography or perhaps, Courtney, if you could expand on that a little bit, just in terms of, unless Meg, if you have a different perspective. I'm not sure if that's relative to geography or different things, but the question was just, where do you go to introduce new products?
Yeah, it's again, if Courtney, if you don't mind expanding a little bit, just so I can understand how we can hopefully help out. But if it is geography, then we do have data points and information on the location of specific consumers. So if you're looking to perhaps tap into a new geographical location or see how your product performs in it, we can help you do that by targeting consumers who live in a specific area.
So the whole geo-targeting, which I think is for me, one of the most powerful tools in social media. So with Sampler, you have the ability to do that as well. So if my product is, say it's in the Ontario market right now, but I want to expand into Western Canada, then we could talk about a campaign that would just focus on Western Canada. Then that's realistic.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And we have a lot of brands that do that all the time. They're launching a new product in a specific new market, and they're looking how that can perform and how potentially they can either change their offering or their product size, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm. All right, because when we were doing our series on social media back in the summer, and we had Brent Martell from Balance Communications, and one of his ideas, which I still love, and I think it's such a, if people aren't doing it, I don't understand why not. But his point was that if you're doing paid advertising on Facebook, then you can geo-target the office postal code of your retail customers. So if you are selling into Sobeys, you can take the postal code of Sobeys office in Mississauga and use that as one of those postal codes that you geo-target, which I thought was, for me, I think it's a great idea. So perhaps in Sampler, you need to have a special identity for category managers that work for retailers. That could be a whole new category for you.
That's a great idea. Yeah, I can bring it back to the team and see what comes out of it. But I see that Courtney said that we answered her question, so that's great to hear. Essentially, I think the most important part about Sampler is that all data is self-reported. So Peter, you would be telling us where you live. You'll be telling us how perhaps your diet looks like, and it is really great because Sampler is also fully compliant when it comes to both North American and European laws. So data privacy is a very, very important factor for us.
Yeah, it is, and I think consumers just expect that now. They don't really. They will not work or cooperate with different entities who are not respecting that. So I think that's great, and that you're doing that sort of on behalf of the brands, I guess, really, right? So so I do see another question there where it's from Jim. It says, is it possible to get an idea of your market reach in a specific area? For example, Edmonton, prior to deciding to utilize the service. So I guess they're asking, is it possible to understand how many people you have in a particular geography?
Yeah, we can definitely help you with that. And for anybody who's interested and who thinks that Sampler could be the right solution for them, I would say reach out to me, reach out to any of us after this call. One of our sampling experts will be able to help you tailor the best possible program for you and make sure that you're meeting all your goals and your objectives.
And for sure, what we'll do is in our follow-up email to everybody, we will definitely include Meg's contact information so that people can just follow through exactly the way that she just said right now. And if you're not on our SKUFood list, maybe just put your name in the chat or something, and just ask to be added to the list, and we'll do that for sure so that we can communicate that to you, because I think it's a really interesting avenue to explore. And I know with a number of the different businesses that I have the privilege of working with, that I think this will definitely be a topic of conversation in the upcoming months, because we've struggled with this in 2020 because the whole in-store sampling thing is not a reality. But I believe one of the good things that comes out of such a challenging situation like we've been facing is that we find even better solutions sometimes. And for me, that's what this presents to people, is a more effective solution that can lead consumers along that path that Meg showed you, get them through that ball of yarn quicker, and really turn them into advocates for your product, which is really, in the end, that's what success is. That people who are going to come in, and as I would always remind you that it's not just about making great products to sell, it's about selling the great products you make. And you work so hard to get it to the shelf, but it's got to get into the shopping cart. And I really, from my perspective, I believe that the services that Sampler offers can be an integral component of that strategy. So I think it's been great. I've learned a lot today. And if we got another few minutes for any questions, if people have them. Is there anything else, Meg, that you wanted to share with the group at all about some of the things, or even things you're seeing out there in the market, or anything like that?
Yeah, no, first of all, thank you everybody for being here, for tuning in, for listening, and hopefully we can work together at some point in time. Peter, thank you for having me. In terms of some trends that we've been seeing, obviously e-commerce is becoming so important and valuable for everybody. Shopping behaviors, I know we chatted about this a little bit, but shopping behaviors are changing. And if you're interested in learning a little bit more about specific metrics and statistics that we have been seeing, I would encourage all of you to go to our website, because our great marketing team is constantly posting new content. So you would be able to read firsthand what we're experiencing and what we're seeing. As I mentioned, we are working with companies of all shapes and sizes. So there would be something for all of you out there.
And I agree with Meg's point about the information on their blogs. I myself, I looked at some, and for those of you who know me, it's a constant, I think, to keep learning about this industry. And I've had the privilege of working in it for a number of years since I started at a store, and 19 years with Loblaw and 12 years working with different producers and processors. But you have to keep learning, and the marketplace is changing so fast. And I know some of the information on the blogs that I was reading from Sampler was definitely enlightening. So I think it's definitely a good thing to have on your reading list. And um, it's definitely and I guess the other thing, Meg, is that you're constantly talking to, you have access to all these consumers, and Sampler is able to really not mine them for information, because that sounds almost bad, but I think you're having a conversation with them, and you're learning about what's going on and what's important to them. So I think that's great. And I see a comment from Michael there about that he's interested in support for marketing fresh apple brands, and I know the apples that Michael is talking about. So Michael, I would encourage you to definitely reach out to Meg, and there may be some opportunities to bring some more consumers and try out some of those fantastic brands, because there's so many categories where there are things happening, and it's hard to get attention. So you really do need to find vehicles that allow you to do that. So Meg, I want to say thank you so much for being here with us today. It's just been great to learn about Sampler, and as I said at the outset, I appreciate your prompt response when I reached out, because it's everybody's busy. But I got an answer right back, and I'm sure that all the companies who would contact you about working with you would get the same level of service. So thank you for that. And it's been great today to learn about your business, about what Sampler is all about. So thanks for being here with us.
Thank you for having me, Peter. And it's been a pleasure working with you as well.
Great. And as we do every week, I'm going to finish off just with some good news stories, because I think as we all work through a lot of these challenges, but there are a lot of good things going on out there in the market. And one of the things that I learned about this week about University of Guelph. So it's the 50th anniversary for their hospitality, food, and tourism management. And they're going to be redoing their food lab. They received $1 million donation from one of their alumni, and they're going to be redoing their food lab, and it'll be named after Anita Stewart, who was the founder of Food Day in Canada. So congratulations to University of Guelph, and it's so exciting to see that we're investing in development in the food industry. And also, as everybody is shifting to virtual options, we're seeing that Open Farm Day, which traditionally was an opportunity for consumers to visit farms and meet farmers who grow their food, which is such an integral thing. And one thing I would tell you that this year, one of the positives to come out of the whole pandemic is that food is more important to people, and they want to know more about where their food is coming up from. So all the things that we talked about telling your story, they're so important, because people do want to know where their food is coming from. So this year, Open Farm Day is virtual. So if you have time on Sunday, September 20th, I'd really encourage you to check it out and really explore. And I know a lot of the people are putting up videos and that kind of thing, so that people can get a sense for being there on their farm. And it shows you the power of video too, how you can bring consumers and also your customers to your farm in this sort of more virtual environment that we're working on. So, and then the last thing I wanted to share was just a partnership with bclocalroute.ca and the Vancouver Farmers Market. And this was an interesting one as people change their businesses and really evolve, where the Vancouver Farmers Market, by working with bclocalroute.ca, have now the opportunity for consumers in that British Columbia market to access their products online. And bclocalroute.ca gives that vehicle for the vendors at the farmers market. And I know we see that in a lot of different markets now, where farm markets have shifted and been able to take orders virtually and then deliver, which is what consumers are asking for. They want to shop this way for food now, so we have to find ways to do it. And it's great that we're seeing organizations, not to overuse the word, but pivot to a new business model. So I see that a note from Crystal there in the chat that in Newfoundland and Labrador, you're doing virtual farm tours as well. So that's fantastic. And I'm sure there's some interesting operations for people to learn about in Newfoundland and Labrador. So congratulations for you for participating. And I should have mentioned it, I believe it's across Atlantic Canada. I did put up the Nova Scotia page because that's what I had received the email about, but I believe it's across Atlantic Canada. So we look forward to doing that. And I see you confirmed that, so thank you, Crystal. And also Susan did put in the chat just the link for our upcoming sessions. And next week, we're going to talk about relationships in that virtual world. And I'm really excited because we have Alain Bossé, the Kilted Chef, who's going to join us. And Alain's been doing some really interesting things since March to take his offering online. And a lot of brands, a lot of food businesses are taking advantage of some of the different ways that are out there to build their brand virtually, and also how they can interact with their customers in that platform as well. So it's, as we've talked before, if you're able to deliver right now, it's a great time to build relationships. And you do have to follow through. You do need to really make sure that your customers are understanding some of the great things you're doing, and that consumers are understanding it as well. And that's what'll get your products on the shelf and into the shopping cart. So we really hope that you'll be able to join us next week, where we talk about those virtual relationships. And then at the end of the month, on the 30th, we're going to talk about online shopping. And we're not just going to talk about the fact that it's shifted there. We're going to talk about what does it mean to suppliers. And it's a new world. And if you're not engaged with it, or you're not participating in it, you really do need to get there. And I noticed this week that Sobeys have launched their online platform as a test market in Nova Scotia. So this is their version of getting out beyond sort of their Ocado partnership in Toronto. So it's definitely changing. Probably 15% of the food in Canada right now is purchased online. So you really do need to be aware of it. That's what, 1 in 8 or 1 in 7 consumers. So you definitely do need to be aware of it. So we really hope you'll be able to join us. And just a little bit of a secret, in October, we're going to sort of change a little bit, and we're going to talk about the numbers and talk about the impact of sort of some of the things in the food business. If you invest in discounts or that kind of thing, how you have to get a payback for that. So that's what we're going to focus on in October. So thanks again for being here. We really appreciate it. We know that you're all busy, that you're busy making great products, and we really hope that our recipes for success, which are presented by FCC, help you sell all those great products you're making. We look forward to seeing you next week.